Thank you for listening to the Dog Trainers Podcast, a podcast created by dog trainers for dog trainers, or anyone who's ever fallen in love with man's best friend.
Well, and I after I said all that I can't wait to have two, I will say I've never been more grateful for Lily and Moose, the hard dogs, because even when I brought Moose in, like almost 2 years ago now, he's such a German Shepherd. Like you cannot think of a German Shepherd, a more kind of that quality, but extremely anxious. Like, and this is funny. The reason why his old owner picked him, it was like a backyard Craigslist buy. She went in and someone dropped like keys, like something dropped, and he went at it at 8 weeks old, and she thought it was cute, so she picked him. And which, so that Moose was really actually the dog that came into my life that I was like, I need to start learning stuff from different trainers because I don't know enough to fix this dog. Like, and what I was doing, and this is where not that all I learned was like corrections, there's so much more to it, but I was like, I think before him, I had hit this place of like, unless you're a Cesar Milan trainer, like,
no, I don't want to fuck with
to
you.
teach me. Yeah. Like I've been able to follow these things, a real ego about it. And this new trainer came in who is amazing. He's in Virginia, Ian McCabe, Dog Methods, but he had been following Mark McCabe, who like the yes work with the food.
Any relationship?
No relationship.
Oh,
just same last name.
That's crazy.
And he taught me, because I think before, even though Cesar uses food all the time, I think a lot of like food work or positive reinforcement is like, you need food. Like you almost like this. And I saw what food was doing for Moose to help him relax. And I saw this like yes work and this conditioned relaxation and this massage stuff. And I was like, holy shit, because, and that's where I'm like, if a dog is entitled, we're going to treat it differently than a dog is anxious, but you can't, in my opinion, you cannot correct anxiety. That's a great way to make a super anxious dog that becomes reactive about it.
Like physically correct. You mean like,
even like
a
it's like if I'm anxious and I tell my husband I'm having a hard day, I'm anxious, my husband's like, just stop. Okay, I'd be like, well, I'm still fucking anxious, but I'm not going to talk to you about it.
It's not that easy. It's not that easy.
Yeah, like, and so that's where I think the idea, especially with sensitive reactive dogs, like I am so grateful for Moose coming into my life because he completely opened a new way of like getting creative and let's figure out how to do this, and a whole new world of like me wanting to learn from different dog trainers and stuff like that.
Well, with that being said, talk to us about some of those different things. So I know you were talking about McCabe and what was his first name? I know there's two of them.
Mark McCabe is the one who does, I learned
verbal
not from
marker.
him, but but he does yes work, which is like, yes, food comes.
Right.
I use it. Now I'll use it all the time to redirect a dog's attention simply because my whole thing is like my last board and train I had was a resource guarder, and he had bit the mom like plus 10 times. And so I love like conversations where you really have to wait before moving in a little bit more. You really have to wait before moving in anymore. But at a certain point in his board and train, I was like, mom's not going to be able to wait 30 minutes every time she takes the food bowl. But also mom had become afraid of her dog because he had bit. So I need to get creative of what's going to work for them when I send home. Like what's going to work to what's mom's personality? Is she soft? Is she strong energy? How am I going to match my training to her so that it's like long? And so this is where the reality is people like using food with their dog. So why wouldn't we figure, with the way that he uses food, I think is so cool. And I've seen it snap dogs out of some really intense stuff. And I'm like, if I can redirect a dog with a word, why wouldn't I pay them afterwards? Like, this is cool. And owners feel comfortable doing that.
Yeah, well, exactly. And it's almost, it's funny because I come from like a compulsion Keeler method background. Right. And, I got to a point where, I was running into brick walls and I was running into, dogs were demoing and their heads are down and their tails are low. And I was just, tired, too much pressure. Right. And when you come out of that and you see like, hey, food is cool. Condition markers are cool. The dog actually likes the squeaker way more than he likes lunging at that thing. Right. And so like all of that type of stuff, it's eye-opening. And of course, why wouldn't I want to take the path of least resistance if I could?
Totally.
Right?
If I can whisper to my child to get her attention, why in the world would
Why would you not? Right.
Exactly. No, and I think that's every dog trainer has like that evolution where we're just like, oh, it's not one thing, right?
Totally.
Because that one thing at some point you hit a brick wall, and even even like my mentor who was like did a lot of sports, at some point his sports training, this is kind of a brief story on him, he was doing a lot of like protection work stuff in the 80s. And then he had no clue. He's from a different country. He had no clue that there was a rescue of dogs, that there were animal rescues and shelters. And it wasn't until the 94 earthquake happened where all of Los Angeles was destructed that he had to go to the shelter to find his dog. And he goes, there's all these dogs in a shelter. And so he used what he learned from the dog sports on some of these dogs, the shepherds, the Rotties, and he was able to be huge. But then he was just like, I'm running into these shivering dogs and these anxious dogs and these dogs I can't put pressure on. And even that, leads every trainer to, okay, maybe it's not just one discipline. Maybe there's a bunch of them. So that's awesome.
I think like the thing that I've encountered, or the thing that I think got in my way, is like limiting of who I thought was a good trainer. And really like the prison program I do, I've learned stuff from some of the inmates. Like I taught them, but then when I'm watching them do something, I'm like, oh, like, why did you do that? Like, oh, that's cool. Like, and these guys have no experience, but I learned something from them. And I think just keeping an open mind, like if you're like positive only does not work, or like balance doesn't work, or correcting doesn't work, just like keep an open mind, because you don't have to take everything from each trainer. You can be like, ooh, I really liked that little one piece. Like most workshops that I've gone to, I've been like, ooh, that one little thing, I love that. And that's worth the $600 I just spent, because that one little thing, I'm going to use it all the time.
Right. And
like,
it's going to go ahead. Sorry.
Well, just just keep an open mind and know you can learn from everybody. Like that really is the biggest thing.
And with that being said, a conversation that we've had with a lot of our guests that I find very interesting, and I wanted to hear your take on, is the evolution, or like the order of the evolution in dog training that people tend to have, because it's always different. Somebody's like, well, I started here, now I'm kind of in a blend of this and this, and and it's always fascinating because it does give a little bit of insight, because we're all human. It does kind of give that little bit of insight into, well, this made sense to me at the time because I was just like in this place at the time, and there's that kind of mixed with, in my opinion, as a dog trainer, the better you get, not only, dogs aside, the better you get and the more well-rounded you become, you can be more effective with the people who don't necessarily vibe on the same like wavelength as you. Because we all get those clients who you're just like, I get you. You're a hard worker. I'm a hard worker. Like, let me show you what you need to do. And you guys just like click.
Totally.
And then there's the person who it's like, we're just two different people, and it's hard for me.
None of your examples make sense to me.
Right. It's hard for me. Well, it's hard for me. Like Brent talks about this all the time. I can like analytically explain to you something, but it's hard for me to get you to feel what I'm telling you so that you actually go and do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a skill set that you develop, but I think the same thing goes for dogs. And I also believe that the better you get, the easier it becomes to get even better, because now you have like a broader skill set that you can then use to go and acquire new ones.
Totally. I mean, I think I feel weird complimenting myself, but I will, which I shouldn't.
You can do
especially, that. I know everyone should compliment themselves, but especially ladies. But this is men too. I'm not going to leave you out, but this is something I do feel like I'm really good at, is matching the energy of the person. And I caught that like kind of early on, where I was realizing there was a lot more trainers that had a lot more experience than me. Why were these people like gravitating towards me? And like, and that was when I was at Cesar's and I became a head trainer, I had to make my price per hour a certain amount. And I later heard trainers have been in the world for a long time kind of scoffing at the price of my hourly rate, because I was so new into the world, but I didn't have a choice. Once I became a head trainer, we all had to have the same price, so that if they were getting training from us outside of it, it was that. And I'm grateful for that, because I feel like it would have taken me a really long time to add, and I've never changed it. It's been that way for however long, but I was like, why are they going to me when this other person has, whatever. And not even that competition, but I feel like if if you have, and this is also trainer's preference, because I read someone's Instagram a week ago, a different trainer, where it was like, I use these tools. If you don't like them, I'm not the trainer for you.
Right.
And I think you can also be that trainer, and that's totally cool. Like, you don't have to take clients that don't match with you.
Yeah.
Right.
I love to like figure out people and then convince them
it's a challenge, right?
Yeah, I love a good puzzle. So like, if I go into someone's house, or if I meet someone and I can tell their favorite thing to do is to cuddle their dog on the couch, I'm not going to say, even though I know, okay, that dog's research starting, get it off the couch. I'm not going to say that right away. I'm going to be like, well, let's talk about structure. And I'm going to like really figure out a way. And it might not be even until session 2 that I say,
right. Yeah.
So we've been doing all these things. We're still hitting hiccups. A really good boundary we could set is getting them off the furniture. How do you feel about that? And like, and I'm like, okay, well, why don't we start with no sleeping at night in the bed, soak up your furniture time for a while. And in a week or 2, let's do this. Like, I like
dosing them. You're dosing them a little bit.
Yeah. And I feel like if someone talks really fast, I'll start talking fast. If they talk slow, I start talking slow. And I feel like that is you're like, newsflash. If you want to help dogs, you got to love to work with people.
Yeah. Yep. Well, mirroring is it's a real thing. It's things that people do in all different kinds of industries throughout the world, dog related or not. Right? No,
I watched that masterclass. I don't know if you guys get that masterclass, the negotiation masterclass on your Instagram. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
The guy who's the negotiator, he's like, I've been a negotiator for 30 years for the NYPD. And like I watched the whole thing, and he talks about mirroring is a huge part of just human interaction. Like,
right.
Yeah. You know? I will say it's horribly embarrassing when you're talking with someone who has an accent, because like we have 2 very good friends from the UK, and when we start hanging out with them, I start
take it.
Yeah. It's so embarrassing. Like, it's not good. Wait, and I don't even mean to. It just comes out.
Is it the accent or is it words? Is it like you guys are gonna go to the pub?
It's the accent.
Oh, okay.
I mean the words too, but I don't think that's like, if they say mate, I'll start saying, oh, my mate, instead of, oh, my friend. I like start and we'll all just stop and like look at me, and it's a pause for like laugh.
You're like conforming to make them comfortable. You're like,
I want to
speak in your language.
But that's a good thing. That's a good thing, right? You're trying to make them comfortable. You're trying to like meet them where they are.
I get you though. I had some friends from Australia, same thing, you know, because I kind of admire some of those accents in a way. Like if an English person says something, it automatically sounds more intellectual. If a Australian person says something adventurous, it's like, yes, that's what it is. You know? So
totally. I mean, the way we speak is trash compared to like
this is true.
Our grammar and stuff.
There's no flavor to what we say. It's literally all make funnable.
Can we shift gears a little bit?
Yeah.
So you were training with Cesar at the Dog Psychology Center.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about, when did you decide to kind of start doing your own thing, your own program? Were you had already had your daughter at this time, right?
Yeah. So I had Lily, and I started doing pack walks. So I was doing pack walks while classes were happening. Because the classes at Cesar's were just on the weekend. So I was working at this rescue when I first moved to LA. I won't even go into it because it's a whole other thing. This rescue was wild. It was wild. So it was a short-lived experience. And that's when I started my pack walk. So Cesar's was just on the weekends, and I was doing these pack walks in the summer and during the weekdays and stuff. And it was really through a lot of these clients that were coming had really intense dogs or reactive dogs. They're just getting away from classes. They wanted help at their home. They wanted help in other things. So it was really through them that I started getting the private sessions. And for a long time, I just kept shadowing trainers until I felt, confident to do it on my own. And it wasn't like Cesar would show up to this weekend class all the time, but it wasn't like I was getting all this one-on-one time with him by any means. I don't want to paint that picture, but it was like all the trainers that he had trained, I was getting all this one-on time with. And then it was the workshops, the fundamentals is when I got more of my experience with him and my time with him. And so it was just like gradually I started doing more. And then eventually they stopped doing the weekend classes. A few of the trainers from there and me like formed our own classes, but then it was just kind of, we all got so busy with our own businesses that slowly faded away too. So it was like gradual at the same time mix. A lot of my clients came from there. And then it was like, slowly getting rid of pack walks. And I had an employee that did all my pack walks, and I just did training. And then when COVID hit, we stopped doing pack walks, and I never added them back in. Like my employee ended up moving to North Carolina. I have a new employee now that was a client. I feel like it always happens like that for me, but I'm just training her to do training. We're not doing pack walks.
Got it.
Yeah.
Awesome.